Ah, love the smell of melted GPU in the morning. Hello and welcome to Escape from Mount Backlog, one man's quest to defeat his game's library. Today we'll be looking at Ashes of the Singularity. Ashes of the Singularity, developed by Stardock in partnership with Oxide Games, is a massive scale RTS very much in the Supreme Commander mold. In fact, I count it as a spiritual successor. It's got damn near the same gameplay style, but it's tastefully updated with some really nice quality of life improvements that make it more manageable. Supreme Commander was notoriously clunky and took time to get used to. That's not the main reason people jumped onto Ashes. It's because it hides a dark secret. You see, it's actually part benchmarking tool. Yes, colloquially known as Ashes of the Benchmark, it's used by YouTube channels and gamers to test their hardware near breaking point. The main reason for this is that it gives you clear metrics on 3 different graphics APIs, DX11, Vulkan, and DX12. Notably, Ashes was the first game to support DirectX 12 and was an early adopter of Vulkan. And of course, I ran some benchmarks. Now, for parity's sake, and to see which APIs work best on my system, I used the game's recommended settings to see which API best keeps my rig to a 60 FPS average. So, I ran the benchmarks on all 3 APIs just to get an idea of what was going on. And of course, I'm going to put these results on screen so that you can see them. My average frame rate running DirectX 11 was 58.3 FPS with a 17.2 millisecond frame time, which is okay, I can deal with that. That's just below 60, but that's still acceptable. Then I ran the benchmark through DX12 and the results were interesting. I got a 62.2 average FPS. That's 16.1 millisecond frame time. What was also interesting was that the average frame rate that was driven out by my CPU was 70.6, meaning that the bottleneck may actually be the graphics card in this case. And I mean, I know the 970 isn't the greatest card in the universe anymore, but that's still interesting for this game. And then I ran Vulkan. Full disclosure, I was expecting Vulkan to do great because I got significant gains using Vulkan when I was playing Doom 2016 versus DirectX 11. I think I got about 10 frames a second extra from that. But in Ashes of the Singularity, running Vulkan, my average frame rate dropped to 34.2 FPS using the exact same settings that I used for the previous benchmarks. I mean, that's insane. I was expecting Vulkan to trounce DX12, but apparently my system prefers it, as these results show. Of course, the reason Ashes could so effectively incorporate 3 APIs is because it was built from the ground up on a custom engine, designed by Oxide Games, the Nitrous Engine. Bit of history. After losing out to Square Enix for the publishing rights for Supreme Commander 2, Stardock had a desire, a goal, to create a massive scale PC exclusive RTS and set out with a guideline with the following requirements. The engine would need to be multi-core to support managing pathfinding and AI for thousands of units. The engine would need to be natively 64-bit so that the memory would not be the limit for the engineers, artists, or future modders. And the graphics engine would need to find a way to fully utilize the GPU, which I can attest for. The benchmarks that I ran showed that my card was running at 99% capacity most of the time. In 2012, Stardock realized that they lacked the in-house capability to build the engine they needed. And since at the time there was no engine that existed that met their requirements, they did what any ambitious or vindictive team would do to make the game a reality. They invested in a startup, Oxide Games. Nitrous, Oxide, do you get it? By 2014, Oxide had built a prototype game using the Nitrous Engine called Starswarm, which is available on Steam. I'll put a link in the description. After this prototype was made available, development of Ashes kicked into high gear, and in 2015, Ashes was released through early access. But as it so happens, Ashes is more than just a benchmarking tool. There's a pretty good game in there too. Well, there is now, not so much at launch. When Ashes was first released in Steam's early access in October 2015, there was no campaign. Only when the game went into 1.0 full retail release in March of 2016 was the first episode of the campaign available. Yes, Stardock decided to roll out the campaign episodically, with the third part, Escalation, having gone live in October 2016. So as it stands now, the campaign stretches over 20 odd missions, which do at the very least offer interesting challenges in later missions, and serve as an adequate tutorial for the multiplayer carnage. The story, however, is about as bland as tapioca pudding, which is a shame, because the framework of a post-human empire could make for some really good cheeseball sci-fi, but the characters are so archetypical and the voice acting so bland that I can't really remember what the story was about. I think there was something about an alien empire taking control of post-human minds, or it could have been an AI. Who knows? What I do know is the game plays like a slow burn. Unlike the few contemporary RTSs like Grey Goo and StarCraft 2 that have quicker, more tactical battles, this game rewards forward thinking, seeing the bigger picture, and production automation. Build your base, build some defenses, and have your factories continually pump out units, which is easy because production structures have a repeat queue option. You are an armchair general in this game, surveying the entire battlefield, commanding hundreds of troops at a time, and yes, it can give you a bit of a god complex. You do need to strategize like a general beyond, say, just a tank swarm. Your army needs a balanced composition to be effective. But the micro, I hear you yell at the screen, it's too much with such big forces. Except it's not. You can select multiple units of different types to create an army or a meta unit, and the AI will drive this unit when you hand down orders to use the forces most effectively. All the automation is handled expertly with the stream economy present in the game. As long as your income is in the green, you won't run out during building. I found great joy in taking an army out to a fight halfway across the map, losing that fight, but then scrolling back to my base and seeing, oh look, there's another wave ready and waiting to go. Skirmish mode is where this game really shines. Just you versus 1 or 2 or 3 AI opponents, all battling it out for the map. That's where this game really shines, and you really get to put forward your best grand strategies. I would like to tell you that the multiplayer works the same way, but I can't. You see, unfortunately the concurrent player base is really low, and I couldn't find a game, and none of my friends were available while I was recording. But if it's anything like skirmish mode, it should be a hell of a lot of fun. And more than fun, this game is beautifully detailed. When you zoom in enough, the soundscape and visuals become a chaotic symphony of lasers and metal, which of course I tried on max settings, but let's just say the frame rate was suboptimal. At recommended settings, it wasn't as visually crisp, but the frame rate held solid while zooming in and out for the most part. And this is where one of my other problems crops in. I wish the unit designs were a little more varied, because when there's so much going on screen, it's hard to identify specific troop types. But then again, they're so expendable that it really doesn't matter. Ashes is a game where the ends justify the means, where throwing waves upon waves of units is a valid strategy, where the faceless robotics die en masse for your victory, where you're distant enough from the action that you don't care about your units. It turns you into an omniscient war criminal, commanding endless legions against finite enemies. Basically what I'm saying is, war. war never changes. So the TLDR then. Buy Ashes for the benchmarking. Keep it for the gameplay. And with that, we close out Strategy Month. It's been a hell of a ride. From World War II to Fantasy Dungeons. From a tactical quick RTS to a ponderous, slower 4X. And finally, this. And that'll just about wrap up this episode of Escape from Mount Backlog. Have you played Ashes of the Singularity? Have you at least run the benchmark? Hit me up in the comments down below. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, share it among your friends. And if you are subscribed, take this chance now to hit that little bell icon thing, so you get notified when I upload new videos. And real talk, it has been quite a month, and I'll be glad to take on some smaller games for a while. Strategy games take an enormous amount of time to get the feel for. Next week, we'll officially be in October, so you know what that means. See you next time.